Hello there everyone and welcome to TVS Nightline, here with me, Shel Shamiator, and as always, let's get to the headlines. Our top headlining story today, as the Longhouse community leaders within the movement control order areas now have the authority to detain errant individuals who violate the movement restrictions. Now, such an approach is necessary following an incident where a group of Longhouse residents had allegedly slipped away through jungle trails.
The most important fortress that we have are the community themselves. And within the community, sama ada kampung, sama ada rumah panjang ataupun bandar kecil, it is the ketua masyarakat that must play their role. And we have entrusted them with the responsibility to do citizen arrest kalau dah nampak orang datang yang tidak dikenali dari luar. And we want them, now the course is already done, it's going on throughout Sarawak. This is the second phase. The first phase awal dulu, now we go for second phase, to re-emphasize the role of the Ketua Kaum, Ketua Masyarakat.
Uga, who is also State Disaster Management Committee Chairman, said cooperation is essential in facing the COVID-19 pandemic. It is something very much needed right at this moment.
Jadi inilah satu tindakan yang tidak bertanggungjawab. Please, don't ever think that you will never be affected. Tak ada orang kebal. Jadi we want to emphasize to all the rakyat, please play your part. We are providing food also to those who are locked down. We do quarantine so that it won't spread. Tapi kalau you pergi keluar, especially if you go to Cebu, then you are exposing yourself. When you go back, you are exposing your family. Jadi itulah kita menyeru kepada rakyat, please kerjasama. Memang ianya menyulitkan. It is a sacrifice, but it is a sacrifice that is necessary, that need to be done by each and every one of us.
Meanwhile, Longhouse Chief bears huge responsibility to act stringent to ensure the safety of the longhouses.
Kita patut ninga utai jaku ajar perintah pasal atur PKP tu nyau ngerkai mayuh ngagai menua rumah panjai. Kita patut nak nerima orang tidak tai hari rumah bukai atau hari negeri bukai. Kita tidak tahu segau-segau nitih kata kena bala perintah nanti nadai kebuah. Jaga penyawa diri hari pangan diri.
He also advised community in longhouses throughout the state to maintain personal hygiene, making healthcare check if they are unwell, and practice social distancing. Moreover, outsiders are also prohibited from entering the longhouse to avoid the possibility of an infection to the longhouse community.
Minta perintah nerit agi atur SOP lebih agi bak rumah panjai. Patut ditambah lagi orang tinggal mata ke pendiau orang di rumah panjai.
Meanwhile, Political Secretary in the Chief Minister Office, Romeo Christopher Tegong, also advised the youth in the Longhouse to abide by the standard operating procedure and to not leave their house without authorization.
Pantau mana sedaya. Kini tunggak perjalanan sedayanya bisa kes di Cebu itu pukul 12 lebih tengah malam. Agi mana kesegau, nyo bisa sampai lama nanti kita sama ninga di Cebu bisa kes namanya kena saman, kena compound ora. Kena compound ke saman kena compound RM1,000. Laban pukul 12 5 minit agi kesegau sebelah jalan. Nya minta tolong apa ini nak ambil berat. Laban tu udah ada perintah ke orang kita MCO atau PKP.
Now, the issues surrounding home-based teaching and learning, or PdPR, must be addressed immediately by the authorities. Now, this is a proactive step in handling constraints in the implementation of this new approach.
Even though the measure to establish PdPR is seen as correct in that it can reduce the risk of COVID-19 infections, certain issues would need to be addressed. Among others, gadgets and internet access are top priority for disadvantaged rural communities. Deputy President of the Consumer Voice Association of Sarawak, Dato' Shamsuddin Abdul Rahman, in a report published in a local portal, said these issues affect many rural students. He said this has caused students to be left behind in their studies. Meanwhile, Sarawak Teachers Union President Adam Prakash Abdullah stressed that immediate action must be taken. This includes upgrading internet access in areas with no internet facilities. He explained that difficulties in acquiring telecommunication devices have affected the learning process that has now transitioned to the new norm. STU had also proposed to the Malaysian Education Ministry to allow rural schools to operate as usual.
Meanwhile, Tien Chu Quin's wish of seeing the damages to her home repaired came true when she was chosen to receive aid under the Sarawak House Repair Program for the Poor.
News was announced by Batu Kitang Assemblyman Loh Kier Chiang during a visit to Chu Kyun's house on Tuesday. The 41-year-old recipient said it was her dream to see the damages repaired. However, financial constraints barred her from ever achieving it. She said her husband's wage working at a factory could only sustain their family's day-to-day needs.
Saya gembira lah, semoga sampai anak pun gembira juga, sehat juga, ya. Macam inilah, lilin lah, silin ya, bilik sana, tandas lagi lah.
Meanwhile, Kota Sentosa community leader Lai Bu Ki said the 15,000 ringgit fund was allocated for repair works involving the roof, kitchen and other areas of the house.
Bukan buat bumbung, ya first time kita datang tu cat pun belum ada, okey bumbung tiada, yang ceiling tiada, dan sekarang dia semua dah buat tu dah. Dan dia under budget ya untuk bayar pulai rumah. Bayar pulai rumah dan tahu saya dia punya kos dia boleh lepas 15,000.
Furthermore, Loh Kier Chiang said 80 houses of the destitute in Batu Kitang constituency had already been renovated under the aforementioned program.
Million Baik Pulih fund, we are able to help a lot of people. Up to date, I've completed almost 80 houses. Some still under construction, but almost 80. 80 rumah. And all these 80 rumah are from the B40 group.
Meanwhile, following the next news, as broadcast industry players need to empower their roles in advocating the mass audience, thus enabling viewers to be smarter in digesting every bit of information received. Therefore, media organizations are responsible for enhancing the people's quality of living in terms of social development by delivering accurate, up-to-date and reliable source of information.
Assistant Minister in the Chief Minister's Department for Corporate Affairs and UKAS, Abdullah Saidul, says TVS's content presented in various programs is significant as a source of information and a platform for entertainment.
Telah membawa banyak bahan yang saya rasa tidak ramai warga negeri nampak dan maklumat-maklumat tentang aktiviti kebudayaan, perkembangan pembangunan, dan banyak lagi berita-berita menarik telah sampai ke kawasan pendalaman.
He said this after paying an impromptu visit to TVS's headquarters on Tuesday. Still young in the broadcasting industry, Abdullah Saidul hopes that TVS will always strive to produce quality and high-caliber content. He opines that a broadcast station must become the pulse in developing society's socio-economy.
Now on to the COVID-19 development as Sarawak continues to record triple-digit COVID-19 positive cases today with 205 infections and 3 deaths reported.
The highest number of cases was recorded in Cebu with 51 cases, followed by Kanawit with 41 cases, Miri with 32 cases, and Bintulu 19 cases. The total number of positive cases in the state has now increased to 3,704. 3 new deaths recorded in Cebu today has raised the state's death toll to 33 cases. Pasay cluster has continued to spike, with Kanawit recording the most number of cases at 41, followed by others linked to the cluster with Cebu at 29 and Dalat with 22 new cases. Meanwhile, Malaysia recorded 3,585 new cases and 11 deaths for the past 24 hours. However, 4,076 patients have recovered over the same period. The 11 deaths have taken the number of COVID-19 fatalities to 700.
Meanwhile, individuals who feel unwell after visiting COVID-19 high-risk areas in Sarawak are urged to get themselves screened and tested at the nearest public health clinic or private hospital.
Those who had travelled to Sri Aman, Betong, Sibu, Kanawit, Dalat, Miri, Beluru and Sabau to visit family and friends or attend events such as weddings and funerals should come forward for COVID-19 screening. Sarawak State Health Department said individuals who become unwell and show symptoms and those who have travelled to high-risk districts should also go for screening. In view of the many positive cases detected in longhouses, longhouse folk are advised to get tested at the nearest health clinic if they feel unwell or experience symptoms.
Now, Sibu Division Disaster Management Committee is allowing companies listed under essential services to operate beginning January 27th. Following this announcement, Sibu Central Police Station was swarmed with hundreds of employers wanting to obtain permission for their workers.
The permits will only allow for travel to and from work. However, Sibu City Council Chairman, Councillor Clarence Ting Ing Hor, regretted the situation that has transpired. He said the station was overcrowded with the public desperately lining up in long queues in order to obtain permits despite the unabating COVID-19 situation there. Ting lambasted the reckless action of overcrowding the station just to obtain permits, saying that this behavior showed that many are still not taking COVID-19 seriously. Ting added that they are as if prepared to take risks by resuming their businesses despite the high number of cases in the district. The use of police permits will be enforced tomorrow only in Sibu.
Meanwhile, following the next update, as restricted movement order has been implemented in another area in Miri. According to Minister of Transport, Miri Divisional Disaster Management Committee or MDMC, Datuk Lee Kim Shin, the decision was made after an approval from Sarawak Disaster Management Committee. Miri Divisional Disaster Management Committee or MDMC continues to get cooperation from the Miri Fire and Rescue Department to carry out the sanitation and disinfection process. This is to assist the Ministry of Health or MOH and the Health Department to clean up the premises around Miri Town to reduce widespread panic and to ensure the community remains confident. Now, 12 officers and 120 personnel from the Territorial Army Regiment 511 under the 3rd Infantry Brigade of Malaysia participated in the blood donation campaign in Kuching today. Now, the blood donation campaign was for the contribution of the blood bank in Sarawak General Hospital. According to Deputy Commander of Regiment 511, Lieutenant Colonel Muhammad Nazri Ismail, the initiative was a collaboration between the SGH Blood Bank to organize the campaign at the Hamid Bugor Hall, Ria Camp, Kuching. The campaign was held at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, aiming a target of 120 blood bags by the SGH. Meanwhile, Brigadier General Dato' Azhar Ahmad expresses his appreciation towards the commitment of his army officials towards the success of the program. He also added that the collaboration between the Malaysian Army and public agencies is important to ensure the well-being of the people.
So, kita menyahut tonggak kelima yang telah diwar-warkan, iaitu hubungan kita dengan agensi awam, orang awam, dan pada hari ini kita mengambil inisiatif atas usaha oleh Komander Regimen 511 Askar Wataniah dan juga Timbalan Komander beliau. Ini adalah satu usaha yang sangat murni.
In addition, the lack of blood banks due to the decreasing trend of blood donation was affected by the Movement Control Order, or MCO, which is a concern among the blood bank organization of SGH. Now moving on to current developments, as the state's development policy is now focused on rural areas. To that end, the Sarawak government has allocated as much as 9.832 billion ringgit in the 2021 state budget. In a previous State Legislative Assembly meeting, Chief Minister Datuk Patinggi Abang Johari Tun Openg said a large part of the development expenditure is focused on rural areas.
The large allocation is in line with the state government's aim to accelerate development in rural areas in the effort to bridge the gap between urban and rural areas. For this purpose, 4.251 billion ringgit, or 67% of the total development expenditure, will go to implementing rural programs and projects. The remaining 2.053 billion ringgit, or 33%, is reserved for urban areas. All initiatives, projects and certain programs will transform the state economy and the prosperity of Sarawakians. There's no doubt that the people have long awaited these plans, especially those in rural areas that still need continuous development. For pensioner Matthias Raya, changes enjoyed by the people nowadays is significantly different than from before, and he hopes that development can continue through long-term planning.
Pembangunan jalan sudah ada, mungkin jalan tambah baik lagi, dibesarkan lagi, bangunan kerajaan di Serikei akan diperbesar dan bertambah lagi. Dan saya fikir seperti dewan-dewan untuk rakyat berjumpa lebih besar, tak susah lagi.
Despite the drastic physical changes seen in Serikei and its surroundings, there are still some things that need to be improved in order to ensure balance in the people's socio-economics. This includes plans to establish an agriculture park in Sarawak Central Region that is famous for its food basket industry.
Idea yang konkret, terutama dalam meningkatkan taraf ekonomi penduduk di Serikei. Sekarang kita dalam perancangan apa yang kita diberitahu untuk menubuhkan satu agriculture, agropertanian. Jadi pembangunan yang berterusan daripada YB yang dikatakan berkelibar lah. Terutama dari segi kita katakan futuristic minded. Menggantikan yang dulu-dulu tu, sekurang-kurangnya menampakkan impak pembangunan yang berterusan.
The allocation of 1.1 billion ringgit to implement people's projects, rural transformation projects and minor rural projects is hoped to realize the development of basic public facilities, simultaneously upgrading the people's living standards. With a long-term plan under the Ulu Rajang Development Agency, Serikei could be promoted into a city. This is based on the division's rapid growth, as it is situated in the valley of Sarawak and the focus of people in northern and southern Sarawak.
Sekarang sedang dibuat sana itu dari Serikei pergi Tanjung Manis. Nanti Serikei satu hari in future itu banyak maju lah. Sebab Serikei itu macam sentro. Sebab Serikei tengok itu dari datang Ropang punya orang, Selatop itu itu dekat itu Betong, itu Lau Pakang, anyway lah, semua boleh datang kumpul di Serikei. Melalui ini Tanjung Manis punya jalan, Serikei punya jalan ke Tanjung Manis. Supaya ini Serikei sekarang saya orang kasih upah banyak orang sudah datang. Sekarang saya cakap sama tuan, Serikei sini sekarang boleh bikin tengok hari Sunday pun boleh. Saturday semua penuh traffic jam macam city. Saya kira satu hari saya harap in future Serikei boleh maju macam ini, tidak lama boleh jadi city lah.
Serikei's population is so far estimated to be more than 200,000 people.
Now, the proclamation of an emergency to curb the COVID-19 pandemic should not be politicized, and the context of its importance should be understood.
Senior Minister for Security Cluster, Dato' Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, said that the proclamation was to facilitate and strengthen all government actions in controlling the spread of the virus by introducing new ordinances. The government will continue to function as usual at the federal and state levels throughout the period of emergency implementation. Ismail Sabri said that the preparation of the draft ordinance by the AGC was running smoothly and expected to be announced in the near future. Once announced, the enforcement of the ordinance would be final and immediate. If the ordinance is agreed to, it will be presented to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Once approved by the King, it will become law. The ordinance enables the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases Act 1988, Act 342, to be amended. It will increase its effectiveness, including increased penalties for anyone who violates relevant laws and regulations, and is effective during the emergency period only.
Now, following the next news, as the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia, or CAAM, seeks to publish a new directive for unmanned aircraft system, or drones, next month.
CAAM Deputy Chief Executive Officer for Regulatory Zainul Abidin Maslan said guidelines will also be prepared with the new rules. He added this is to ensure only train operators have the right to control the drones for industrial use. In order to secure a bright future for Malaysian drone industry, enforcement of new regulations would require repetitive processes such as registration, authorization, and surveillance. He added various other processes involved would need to be done online or to the unmanned traffic management platform. According to Zainul, unmanned aircraft activities in Malaysia are currently bounded by the Civil Aviation Regulation 2016 and the Aeronautical Information Circular 04/2008.
A good news, as many as 195,028 data plans and 3,773 devices have been distributed to students of higher education institutions from the B4D category. This was for the period of 30th October to 31st December last year, since the data plan and device package was launched.
The Minister of Higher Education, Dato Seri Dr. Nuraini Ahmad, said the ministry is also in the process of procuring 3,997 laptops and desktops to be distributed to higher education students. At the same time, the ministry also implemented the initiative to get the best offers from data plan and device provider companies for the students. Moreover, the ministry had also held discussions with Bank Simpanan Nasional for another financial loan initiative under the BSN My Ringgit iComsi scheme for the purchase of laptops by higher education students. As such, Student Volunteers Foundation under the ministry has also launched a crowdfunding initiative through Tabung Prihatin Siswa. This, at the same time, is a platform to invite outsiders to channel contributions to help students continue their home-based online lessons without any constraints.
Now on to some local sports development, as Kuching FC boss Irfan Bhakti prioritizes on the health of the players before facing the next league.
Ya, saya baru seminggu bersama dengan pasukan. Apa yang saya nampak ialah positif daripada pemain-pemain. Kerana buat masa sekarang ni ialah kami mementingkan dulu di segi conditioning pemain. Jadi pemain harus cergas untuk menghadapi peringkat seterusnya.
Commenting further, his team is still awaiting official announcements regarding the next league from the Football Association Malaysia FAM.
Keadaan COVID-19 ni begitu berat sekali masa sekarang ni. Jadi kita menunggu keputusan paling awal kalau nak bermula liga pun ialah pada 5 Mac ataupun 2 April. Jadi kita tunggu jadual sebenar daripada FM lah.
At the same time, according to the team captain Joseph Kalangti, the current trainings are as usual with high compliance to the standard operating procedures set by the Ministry of Health.
Sebelum season start sebelum start season, kami ada buat medical check up semua players harus buat medical check up sebelum training start, and then sebelum game or season game start, kami akan buat swab test yang itu memang wajib, itu arahan daripada MFL. So untuk semua tu akan dibuat masa terdekat lah.
And that wraps up TVS Nightline for tonight. Here with me, Shaminato. As always, thank you for joining us tonight. I'll see you next time and have a good night.